It's starting up.
Live?
We're live.
Are we live?
No, I gotta find it.
Oh, okay. We're live.
We are?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
we're rolling.
So, hi. My name is Janine J. I am the owner and head trainer at Canine Complex, and this is my assistant and the other instructor, Jillian Skidmore.
Hello.
And we are going to talk to you about a couple of things. First, just a little bit about ourselves and our training approach. We work primarily with fearful, reactive, aggressive, high arousal dogs that have some sorts of issues. We also work a lot with puppies. We have a special approach to puppy training, which is designed to help the puppy grow up with minimal trauma or stress-related issues, so that when the puppy is an adult, they don't need our services to help with various issues. So we do a type of training that is choice-based, dog-directed, meaning it is not about giving the dog commands or cues, not about teaching the dogs behaviors that they must perform. We do a lot of work with watching the dog's natural body language and understanding, teaching our clients to understand what the dog is saying and what they can do to help. Dogs primarily, just like all humans and most other animals, if not all, are looking for in their lives, are looking for safety. And that's what we are doing. We're teaching our dogs that we, as their human, is their source of safety. And we teach our human clients how to express that to our dogs. So our training is very unique to Western New York, but is very cutting edge. A lot of the top trainers, most of the top trainers in the world are starting to or have been teaching, working with dogs with this kind of mentality, that kind of a welfare first approach, an ethological approach, the idea that dogs have natural behaviors that are natural to them, and a lot of what we see as bad behavior is actually natural behavior for dogs. In fact, I would say most, if not all, of what we see is natural behavior for dogs, but maybe extreme because the dog isn't being heard, maybe extreme because of trauma the dog has suffered, various other reasons, because of the dog being confused, other dogs that are in proximity are not really communicating well. So again, back to myself, I have a master's degree in cultural anthropology where I studied nonverbal communication. I also am a certified dog behavior consultant through the IAABC, and I have a few other certifications, including certified control unleashed instructor, predation substitution trainer, and family dog mediator. And I am working on a couple of other certifications right now as well. Jillian, and you have a certification as well, if you want to share.
Yes. So I do have a certification of dog trainer from Catch Canine Academy. I also have a bachelor's degree in animal behavior, ecology conservation from Canisius, and a master's degree from the University of Buffalo. So I do have a lot of experience with dogs as well. I am offering 3 classes right now. I'm currently teaching a natural puppy class, so that has been a lot of fun. And I'm currently offering 2 new classes, which is the senior dog experience and social cues. If you hear a dog barking, that's just my dog, so don't worry about him. He's okay. So if you do have any questions or any comments you would like to make, there is a comment section that we will go ahead and read off. So if you have any questions, we'll go ahead and read those off in the live chat.
So to start with, we want to discuss the question of what is the role of obedience training in our work or work with dogs who have fear, high arousal, reactivity, and aggression. Is obedience training beneficial or is it detrimental? Is it going to help your dog? Is it possible to help your dog? Can it make it worse? And what I'd like to start out saying in regards to this is when you're looking at obedience training, there's a lot of things to consider. First of all, the instructor you're working with, what type of training do they do? There's a lot of types of training out there: balance training, positive reinforcement training, force training, as we do choice-based and dog-directed welfare first training. This talk is not meant to cover what those types of training are and what, if any of them, are better or worse. That's a topic of a different day. We are going to be discussing primarily what we do here, which again is welfare first, dog-directed, choice-based. We don't technically do either positive reinforcement or positive punishment. We do possibly some positive reinforcement. Positive punishment is not something that one can avoid in life, but we do not use that as a means of teaching our dogs. But again, we're not looking to determine the validity of any particular type of training. But when you are looking into the potential to do obedience training with your dog, one of the first things you want to do is look into the types of training different teachers offer, different schools, different facilities offer. Make sure the type of training that they offer is what you want to do with your dog. All obedience training all training facilities are not equivalent. Some are better than others. Some have more experience. But just make sure that the type of training they offer is what you're looking for. Now, as to whether obedience training is of value to the type of dogs we work with, first of all, I want to say that obedience training can be life-saving. I, as an instructor, I do not teach obedience in any of my classes. In puppy classes, I might teach a recall, but that's about it. I don't teach any obedience commands or cues. It's not what I do. Jillian in the future will probably be offering some more obedience type or family manners type of classes. Obedience is and can be a very, very actually life-saving thing for your dog to know. Think about your dog's running out into the street. If it has a recall, your dog's not likely, much less likely to get hit by a car. If there are dangerous dogs or something around and you want to make sure your dog is sitting still and not lunging or, is safe, that's a fabulous skill to have. There are probably a lot of obedience skills that aren't necessary, but for the main skills, sit, down, stay, come when called, leave it, and several others, they can 100% save your dog's life. So I firmly believe that obedience training has its place in your dog's life. Will obedience training, traditional obedience training, fix your dog's fear, aggression, reactivity, high arousal issues? Let's have Jillian answer that.
From personal experience and from what I've seen with dogs, I really don't think it will. Honestly, I've seen dogs, even in my own natural puppy class, when we were trying to do sits and downs, they will have a very hard time if they are extremely stressed or anxious. And at that point, it is kind of useless, in my opinion, to kind of do obedience at that time because the dog is extremely stressed or the dog is extremely fearful. So they're not going, and their attention span and their focus is very, very short during that time. So it's not going to be beneficial to a very fearful or high arousal dog. Because if you're trying to tell them to sit and they are just pulling you or they are just cowering in the corner, they're not going to do that because they're in a flight or fight risk, flight or flight mode. That's what they're really focused on. That's really not do I need to leave or do I need to defend myself? So, at this point, I wouldn't say that obedience does. Honestly, from my personal experience, I don't see it doing as much, for your dog if they are very fearful or if they are very high arousal. It feels like it would just kind of go over their head a little bit because they're very much, what is this? There's so many new dogs. There's so many new people. It's a lot for them. It can be very overstimulating for them in that situation. Mm-hmm. So I think, at that point, you do need to focus on behavior modification, for that, do some more behavioral training in that respect,
And what I would add to that is, what Jillian said, what we call fight or flight, we refer to that as primal brain, meaning the dog is in survival mode. The dog's brain is using neural pathways that have formed from a traumatic experience that the dog has had. And so they're not thinking rationally. The brain has created neural pathways that basically the brain is telling the dog that your survival depends on this. That is when we see a dog that can't focus, can't take treats. We get that all the time where a client is like, my dog is really... my dog is really good at home, except when they see another dog, and then they won't respond to treats, toys, or anything. And what we call that is the dog. I'm just going to adjust that for a second. It's not working.
Okay, there we go.
That is the dog's primal brain, which is just a term I've coined. It does not have an actual scientific definition. It's a term I've coined to express how the brain works when the brain feels that the dog, human, any living thing's survival is threatened. We see this with with humans, a really good example of this with humans is, and I'd like to make a lot of comparisons between humans and dogs so that my clients can better understand where the dog is coming from. But a perfect example of this is we've all had an experience where somebody we know and thought we trusted makes a very negative, rude comment towards us and behind our back, and we hear about it, and suddenly that's all we can think about. We can't, we have a hard time focusing on moving forward. We have a hard time letting it go. We want to contact that person right away and yell at them and tell them we're mad at them and tell them we know what's going on. And usually if you can wait 24 or 48 hours, your brain will be out of that primal mode and it won't matter as much. But when something happens immediately, something in our brain, even though we know we will survive, but maybe we feel socially we won't survive or something of that sort. It's not necessarily physical, but social survival, that you can't deal with the fact that someone is saying this about you. And that can be the same, very similar to what happens when a dog, for instance, sees another dog or sees a person they're scared of. If it's a dog that doesn't like, that's worried about other people. It could be it doesn't matter if it's fear, aggression, reactivity. Different brain processes are happening to make sure you understand. I am not saying that all the brain processes are the same. There's the dog's brain is very complex and very all the different brain structures work together, work independently and together, and then all the different neurochemicals. So there's a lot going on. And this is a very, very, very simplistic explanation meant only for the layperson, just the dog trainer that doesn't have a good knowledge of what's going on in the brain of the dog, but just to understand that it triggers a survival pathway, and so the dog is unable to think and act. That's when you have a dog that's barking and you can't tell it to sit, you can't give it food, and you can't tell it to come because it won't listen. So long and short of that is obedience can teach dogs self-control, but it does not address what's actually going on in the brain of the dog. It does not address the neural pathways that have been created. It does not address any trauma that the dog may have experienced. And I see we have a question here. We will get to all the questions one way or another, but I see we do have a question of what is an example of trauma for a dog. And since we're talking about that, I'm going to add that, respond to that right now. Trauma can be as simple as being taken from its present living situation and being put in foster care. That can be traumatic for a dog, just like it could be for a child being taken from their family, putting into foster care. It's very traumatic, and that is going to affect the way the dog reacts to things in the future. Trauma can be a dog being attacked by another dog. Trauma can be living in a world where nobody else understands them. So they are trying to communicate something in their own dog body language or vocal language, and the people they live with and around them don't understand them. For instance, example, every time most people in the U.S., when they see a dog, they come up to the dog with their hand. You can't see my hands, but with your hands out. We always come up to dogs. Oh, hello, hands first. We all know what the dangerous part of a dog is. Its teeth. We get worried and find a trainer if our dog is coming at us with their teeth bared. But very few actually think about what is the dog's perspective on that. What does the dog see as being the most dangerous part of a human? And I would say that would be a human's hands. So a dog who is being approached by too many people, hands first, and being a dog that maybe has been rescued off the streets, a free living dog, a dog imported from another country where it was free living, and then come into a living in a home, and everybody's trying to touch it. That can be very traumatizing for a dog. Those are several examples. A near-death situation, like the dog almost gets hit by a car, the dog gets out and is lost for a while. Many, many, many things. Just like with humans, a lot of things can traumatize a dog. So back to obedience. We are looking for, when we're talking about obedience behavior, again, bear in mind, obedience is a wonderful skill to have. Everybody should take an obedience class with their dogs, or some sort of manners class. I don't really like the word obedience. I prefer manners, but that's my own opinion. But again, learning a sit and a stay and a down and leave it, those things can save lives, but they don't affect the actual brain chemistry of a dog who has been traumatized. Or a dog that has possibly even just been born fearful or born reactive. We see that a lot. Dogs' behavior is affected by a number of different things. It is affected by their genetics of the breed they are. It's affected by their parents. It's affected by their early life experiences and socialization. It's affected by what did I forget? They're individual, just who they are as individuals. And all these things work together to make the dog what it is, so you can have extreme fear with a dog who's just been born. And you can have extreme reactivity with a dog who's just been born. Socializing and proper upbringing in the young days of a dog's life, an attentive mother, lots of good care can help to a certain extent, but it's still, the brain is the brain. So while you can teach a dog to sit or lay down, you still are not changing the way the dog feels about a certain trigger. What we want to do is to work on changing that trigger, or changing that response to the trigger, so that the dog feels that there are conscious choices he can make rather than just allowing the brain to make the decision for him. So if anybody out there has been to any kind of therapy or counseling in their lives, we all learn different techniques when we are triggered. We learn how to do deep breathing. We learn how to do some journaling. We learn how to call somebody to help us to talk through it. We learn how to understand that the things that trigger us, how they cannot hurt us. We learn to understand what can harm us, what we can change, what we can't change, to accept what we can, what we cannot change. We learn all those things in therapy, and those are tools that we have by which, when we get triggered, so somebody that may have a little bit of PTSD, trigger happens, instead of the brain taking over and the individual just going into a PTSD, severe PTSD episode, the person may be able to say, I feel this coming on. This usually helps if I go and do some meditation. We're looking to do things like that with the dog, not necessarily meditation, but teaching the dog how to self-soothe, how to determine that they need to relax, that they need to step out of a situation, and that they need to go find safety, and that their human is going to provide that safety for them. We teach them, one of the main options that we teach them is look to your person. We don't care if the dog sits. We don't care if the dog does it down. We don't care if the dog turns when they're called. We want the dog to see that trigger and most of the time be able to say, I'm going to we just had a message pop up that we don't know what it means, so hopefully it doesn't mean anything bad. What was I just saying? So for the dog to be able to think first, even if it reacts first, or shows fear first, or snarls and shows aggression, that their brain can also say, well, maybe I can do this instead. Maybe I can look to my person will come up and help me, and I don't have to defend myself because my person is there to do it for me. So again, I think to try to cut this short for a minute here and work on answering some of the questions that we have. I, again, will reiterate that the type of training that we tend to do, which is dog-directed, we're looking to get the dog to think. We don't want to, when you're using obedience, you're kind of telling the dog how to respond in a certain situation. What we want is for the dogs to actually start to use their own brains and think and make conscious, logical choices. So teaching the dog about choice, about transitioning between different states of mind effectively. So if the dog is playing and suddenly becomes stressed, what can the dog do? How can the dog transition from that stress to work or play or relaxation? And if we're transitioning into work, that does also involve some obedience. You can use tricks, you can use obedience or anything. It's a technique that we use, but you can use anything that you can pay your dog for as a way to help the dog transition from, I've just became stressed, so now I would like to do some work, if that's what the dog does best. We can also use relaxation. We can also use play or enjoyment. so not being able to really get into details about all those, that's something for another talk. Can obedience be detrimental to your reactive, fearful, aggressive, high arousal dog? Well, I guess theoretically, if the training is harsh and the dog cannot deal with that, possibly. But no, I don't think it can. I don't think it's the first choice for that type of dog, a dog with trauma, a dog with fear. It's not necessarily the first choice that dog should be taught. I think we should address the emotional aspects first. But we can, I just lost my train of thought for a second. If you know me, you know I do that a lot. What was I talking about?
Obedience being detrimental.
Oh, yeah. So obedience is not typically detrimental, but for me, recommending that we work with the emotions first, that we work with socializing, that we work with creating safety, resilience, all those things before going into obedience training. But no, I don't see in general the nature of obedience is not going to be detrimental to helping your dog become a better version of itself. The only possible exception to that would be if the dog simply cannot function well enough in a classroom or in the world even to actually learn obedience skills. Still, it wouldn't be detrimental. It just would not be something that would work. Do you have anything you want to add?
I would say with obedience, it definitely, having my dog like sit and stay and not jump on someone, especially with the, being disabled, is great and everything. And I love doing leave it with my dog. That has been amazing and so helpful with him, especially because a lot of my apartment complex residents will leave chicken bones. There was raw chicken. I did not want him to get that, so I said leave it and had treats with me, and that's great. It comes in very much handy, but
life-saving.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it does not help with his mouthing. And when I got Monty, he did not really start mouthing until after a few days with him, and he was a little bit stressed. So I really had to think outside the box with him and get some help from Janine about, behavior management and some behavior modification and, come up with a plan with him. But with obedience, with the sit and stay in place, it wouldn't have done anything for that. He still would have been very stressed. So I had to really think outside the box for him, and that's where we had to kind of go to high arousal techniques with him and see what's the best solution for him.
Yep. No, absolutely.
And
my puppy Treason, who is Monty's brother from another mother, also is very mouthy, and that took a lot of work of teaching him to relax. He still, if he is over threshold, he will become mouthy, whether playing with another dog or just towards me, which requires me to just stop for a few seconds and help him to bring himself down to a more manageable level. And he's still an adolescent, but he is doing quite good for the most part. But just asking for a sit, it might, or a leave it, might prevent the behavior from happening, but it isn't going to change the anxiety or stress that goes along with what causes him to want to feel that he needs to mouth, and that his reaction to being over threshold. He's a very high energy dog. He is one of the best dogs I've ever had in terms of his body language and his way to his ability to communicate to other dogs. but he's still an adolescent, and he can easily become over aroused. And the best way for him is to get a little bit of separation from whatever's stressing him, or to just get close to him, talk to him, soothe him. He likes to be having some petting. When he gets stressed, maybe do a little bit of some control unleashed pattern games. That helps him to be able to bring himself down. But again, we're looking to, in the long term, we're looking to change the that which is going on in the brain that is causing these things to happen. And let's just go to our questions for a minute so we can finish up. First one, what is your favorite behavior challenge in a dog that each of you like to work with or get the most satisfaction? So for me, so many of them. I think what I like is seeing a dog that is very high arousal, being able to understand the first moments that those dogs start to understand that they can actually think and use their brain and make some choices. What I really like is when I have a variety of dogs in a class that are not all the same, which is almost every class, and having to determine what is the best way for dog A to achieve relaxation as opposed to dog B. Dog A may find walking around and sniffing relaxing, whereas dog B might like to lay down and get his belly rubbed. Dog C may like to lay down and be chewing on a bone. I see a lot of dogs going from play to with a toy to taking that toy and taking themselves over to their mat and laying down and starting to chew and actually relaxing themselves. So I guess that's not really a behavior challenge, but it's a challenge that I have as an instructor, is to help each human understand the best route to getting their dog to relax, to self-soothe, to feel joy, to focus, and all those routes can be very different. Jillian, what's your favorite behavior challenge?
I really had to think about this. I really think, should I put my head in there? I think it's really learning the dog's personal pace. I know that sounds a little funny, but it's more of like, because I told this to a client once, one size does not fit all when you're training a dog. Like Janine mentioned with the personalities, they're each different personalities. You really have to learn each of their own pace. I had to learn that with my dog too, especially, when I posted a video with like his spin and stuff, I had to look at my own training techniques as well and be like, okay, I could have adjusted here and here, and then, that's how we're going to adjust to make his life a little bit better. But what I learned with my natural puppy class, and I think more with like the small dog fearful class on Sundays, is like, with some of the dogs, I see them when they're going at their own pace and they're learning in their own, I think when they're learning in their own way, I think more of the challenge is like when you're trying to learn how to go their different way, how to go do a different method for each of them. But then once you see them overcome that fear, it is the most rewarding thing ever. Like when seeing Peach go in that pool, that was huge. That was huge, it was amazing to see because she was extremely fearful last year, but she has overcome her fear in so many ways. And the pool, that was just absolutely amazing. So I think that's the one I get the most enjoyment out of.
Next question. How does a dog become a fearful dog? So many ways. It can be born fearful. I have in the past bred Australian Coolies, and in any given litter you're going to see one or two dogs that are extremely bold and confident, and one or two dogs that are more fearful. The majority of the dogs are going to be middle of the road, and I think even with dogs that are bred for sports or bred for show, you may get only a couple that are really, the perfect example of what you're breeding for. I guess it's a bit off topic, but basically a dog can be born fearful. Lack of socialization, and socialization is not necessarily meeting every dog that you can okay, that you don't want to take your dog to meet every single dog they see and let them play with every single dog. In many cases, just allowing the dog to sit and watch the world go by is the best way to socialize. So if the dog isn't getting that, if the dog is not getting any exposure, then you can have a dog that develops fear, a trauma, a bad experience. A dog gets attacked by, you're walking your dog on leash, and unfortunately it happens that sometimes dogs are not on leash, and sometimes those dogs are not friendly and they come up and they attack your dog. And even if it's not super bad, that can make your dog become very fearful. So there's a variety of ways that that any dog can what am I doing there?
It's okay.
Okay. That any dog can be
Oh, you got it. Perfect.
that any dog can become fearful. Tammy, hi, miss you and Olive. Send me a message. Nancy, separation anxiety.
It's been doing that.
So yeah, that's a big topic to cover in the small period of time. So desensitization, counter conditioning, working on very slow periods of putting the dog in the crate, leaving the room for a second, coming back, and building that up to where you're leaving the house, to where you're leaving, getting in your car and driving away, but coming back immediately. Very, very, very slow increases in the amount of time the dog is in the crate. Does he, I guess the questions I would ask you is, does he need to be in a crate? Is he, he's an adolescent, so he may very well be destructive when he's at home, not in a crate. My puppy Treason is in a crate all the time when I leave. I usually bring him with me, but when he's at home, he's in a crate. And if I bring him with me, he's in a crate when he's not working or playing. So I understand if you feel he needs to be in that crate. The slow process of desensitization and counter conditioning is what I would recommend first. Finding, and if you want to text me about this separately, Nancy, I'm happy to talk to you more in detail. but I think I would work a lot on choice about entering the crate. And I can show you some ways to do that, to give him a choice to say, you know, I'm going to leave the room. Can you go in the crate? What toy do you want? What shoe thing do you want to come with you when you go into the crate? So you're giving him some choice about how he's entering the crate. You can also work on my protocol for transitioning from different emotional states, which can help him understand that when he's in the crate, that's his place for relaxation. But again, you still want to pair that with some desensitization and counter conditioning in order to make that be more comfortable for him when you have to leave. Next question, mouthing. Mouthing does not have to be bad. The type of mouthing that both Monty and Treason do is very hard,
Yes.
kind of chewing on arms.
Yes. It has left bruises on my arms, and it's to the point where he cannot let go, or he nips at my legs and stuff. So that mouthing is a very stressful mouthing. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Okay. Yeah, and Monty was a rescue. Treason was a dog from a litter that I bred, and it just happened to be the entire litter was one of the most mouthy litters I've ever had. They use their mouth to chew a lot, and normally when I have a litter of puppies, I will work on getting my hands in their mouth immediately so they're comfortable with it. These guys, that was hard to do. Why? I've bred other litters with the same parents that didn't have the same issue, so who knows? I don't know. No, mouthing does not have to be a bad thing. When it is extreme, anything that a dog does, when it's jumping up on you, I don't have a problem. My dogs jump up on me to tell me that they're stressed, or not even that they're stressed, that they're a little bit worried about something and that they want some support from me. My dogs aren't huge, but like I wouldn't really want Great Dane doing that, but my dogs are only about like 30-pound dogs, so that they do that for a reason. It's not extreme. If it was extreme, I've worked with a Staffordshire Bull Terrier that was so stressed. And that dog would, for the first 4 weeks that I worked with that dog in a private lesson, was jumping on me constantly, all the way up to my face, not trying to bite, but just really intense about getting up to my face. And that was a big, heavy dog. And it was so stress-ridden that I knew that if anything triggered that dog, I felt that if anything additionally triggered that dog at that moment, that what he was doing could have easily transitioned into aggression. But by about week 5, the dog had understood the calming mat that we work on, a lot of different calming and self-soothing exercises. The dog was able to use those. So we're looking at extreme. If your dog is gently chewing on your arm, I don't care, as long as you don't care. It could be showing that your dog is a little bit stressed, but bear in mind, stress is something that our bodies evolved to need stress to survive. Stress does not have to be a bad thing. There can be positive stress, there can be toxic stress. We don't want toxic chronic stress. Positive stress is necessary for a living organism to be healthy. So your dog may be gently chewing on your arm, gently mouthing your arm, because that dog is maybe a little stressed, but this helps to relax. If it's not extreme and you're okay with it, it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, everything we want to look at everything in terms of how extreme it is. Can the dog control themselves while experiencing, while doing certain behaviors? Let me think of something else. Barking. I don't have a problem. I don't want to silence my dog. I want my dog to bark and let me know if they see something that they're concerned about. I have no problem with my dog doing that. But typically when they do bark, I see my dog stopping after a couple seconds. That's fine. I don't want to change a dog. I don't want to silence a dog from barking. What I want to do is, if the barking is extreme, we want to help lower the intensity of that behavior. So if that dog is barking, losing it, pulling, jumping, can't control itself, we want to help the dog lower the intensity of that. If your dog is mouthing you gently and you're okay with it, that may be a stress relief, but we all need stress reliefs. Twirling your hair, chewing on gum, eating snacks. That's my favorite stress relief. I can't think of anything else as examples right now, but there are thousands of things that we do to help us release stress. So again, no, it isn't a bad thing in and of itself. And it isn't a bad thing even if it is extreme. It's a normal dog behavior that is resulting from a large amount of stress or anxiety or whatever. So it's again, biting, using the mouth is normal dog behavior. Dogs do it. They like to chew. Chewing is extremely good for dogs. But it's uncomfortable when a dog is really mouthy towards, your arms and is leaving, scratches on you. We don't want to, not that we don't want to encourage that, we just don't want to see that. We want to help the dog in that situation. And as I said, I know for Monty it's the same, but for Treason, he is only mouthy when he is really over threshold. He's a high drive dog. If he gets really excited, I can see immediately, because he'll bite a collar of a dog that he's playing with. So I will help him separate, do some relaxing, and then we let the dogs play again. When he does it to me, it's usually because we've been outside playing, and now I'm going to go take him to go into the house, and for whatever reason he's like, oh my gosh, and then he starts jumping up and grabbing my arm or clothes, and then I will immediately stop and help him to settle. Actually, I typically try to help him settle before I get up to go take him back in the house. But those are just some things that trigger him, that cause him to feel some arousal, some stressful arousal. And again, it all depends on how extreme it is. And if you choose that you don't want your dog gently chewing on your arm, that's your choice too. When, instead of just punishing your dog, when you stop your dog, give them or show them something else to do instead. So either you can give them something else they can chew on, or you can say, okay, instead of chewing on me, fabulous example. I had a client with a Great Dane named Norman Bates. He was a very, very, very stressed dog, and he would mouth his humans whenever he was stressed on their arms, and he would press with his mouth very hard. It wasn't a bite, but he would mouth the arm and press down very hard and hold. We determined very quickly, he had come from another trainer who told them he was being aggressive and that he should be euthanized, but he was not. He was showing stress and that he needed to not be in the situation he was in. So we started we started to figure out what his stressors were, and whenever he tried to mouth one of the client's arms, we would ask him to stop, and then we taught him instead to use his paw to hit the arm with his paw, and he learned that really quickly. And instead of biting, very, very quickly he started just hitting his people's arm, and then they knew immediately that he's getting stressed. We need to take a break, and we'd walk away and take a break. So yeah, in a lot of words, to just say, if it's gentle, if you're okay with it, it's fine.
Yeah.
It is not innately a bad behavior.
And
Anything you want to say?
yeah. Oh, yeah. With Monty, yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like with his mouthing, he didn't know how to communicate. You know, like when he was stressed and he needed to relax, it felt like he would mouth me. Or when he needed to go outside, and it felt like there were not any ways, you know, to tell me that, or if he wanted to play, because now he's actually playing, which is great. But, you know, when he in the beginning, he would mouth me and I would have bruises and like and scratches from his teeth on my arms. It was bad. And this is the form of punishment, but sometimes when it was like he was just really over threshold, I would put him in his crate a little bit just to, you know, give him some time to decompress, you know. And yeah, that is a little bit of form of punishment. You know, it's kind of like a timeout for a little kid, you know, but in a way, it's not like, you know, hitting him or, you know, slapping him across the face. And, you know, I very much had to learn, you know, not to kind of push him and everything. So, you know, we did try touch, you know, with his paw, you know, touching me and everything with, you know, instead of using his mouth. But, you know, also there's more I had to learn about him, too, because I've had him for about 8 or almost 9 months now. And, he is not a big giant group dog. He does not like the giant groups, you know. I thought he did have an issue with males, but I think that's just more with a sudden introduction. So he may need a slower introduction, but I think he's now learning to communicate, you know, so now he's not mouthing as much. But, like, you know, when he needs to go outside and go potty, he will go to the door, you know, to the front door instead, and then just kind of, and I'm like, that's, you know, and with barking, it's like, that's how he's telling me he needs to go outside. Or if he is a little bit mouthy, I will just go up and walk away, curve my body, and turn my head. You know, I know you can't see it with this, but in the way that's for me saying, you know, calming him down, and I would wait for him to sit, and it would stop. And we do have a reel of that on our Facebook page of showing him. If you are interested, Janine and I can definitely talk to you more about that. But it really felt like with his, you know, he was, you know, like with Norman Bates, he wasn't able to communicate like, okay, I'm really stressed, or okay, this is really what I need. Because this afternoon when he was mouthing me, or this morning I think, he was mouthing me a little bit, and I'm like, Monty, do you want to play? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, that's really what I want to do. And I'm giving him the choice, like, we can either play, or you can relax, or come up on the couch. Like,
giving you a choice. Yes. And teaching other better ways to communicate their needs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like, I took him out once outside, and he peed and pooped. He did his business and stuff, and then afterwards he was by the door barking. I'm like, why are you barking? He was kind of mouthing me. I'm like, do you need to go back outside again? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then he pooped again. So in a way, he's like, you know, he is learning more to communicate with me, but his mouthing was very severe, where like, he would not let go of my clothes, he would not let go of my arms, you know, and he still has his moments here and there, but they are less severe, you know.
And I remember him in his early classes when you first started classes with him, and
Yes.
I would look over and she would be super frustrated with him, trying to get him to stop mouthing. And we worked on just walking out of the class for a second, walking out of the room and taking a little walk with him. And now he is so good at relaxing. He has even, when we work on transitions, he's even said, no, I don't want to play, I just want to relax and watch. And he's so good at that. But
Oh, yeah.
it's taken a lot of learning on both sides to understand what he's saying and to give him other options and ability to figure out different ways to communicate what he needs.
Yeah, it's a learning process for both the human and for the dog. It was a learning process for me because I've never encountered anything like that. You know, I have worked with dogs almost all my life, but I've never had that. And it was a learning experience for Monty because he had to learn how to communicate differently. And, like, you know, we tried to touch, you know, where he would just touch, you know, I say touch and he just touched my leg with his paw, but that didn't work. So we really had to, I had to really do other things with him, with, you know, how to communicate. And yes, he is also on a common care probiotic too, so that did, you know, help his gut as well. But it's not a medication, but it's just more of a probiotic for him. But that, I mean, mouthing, you know, I think it's just something you really, with each personal dog, it's gonna be a different technique. So it's not bad. It's not bad. You need. Ooh. You would need to use some management techniques and then go into some behavior modification and do some actual training with that. But there are some good management techniques too, especially with food. When I'm eating, I definitely do have that. If you want more tips, I can definitely let you know. So,
And I think we're going to finish up on that note. We've answered all the questions, I believe.
Yeah.
I did want to add one thing about our original topic, about obedience training. And what I wanted to say was, for me, obedience training is a means to teach your dog how to live in human society. Obedience is about the human. It's about the behaviors we want our dogs. We're not working with natural behaviors to the dog. We're teaching dogs behaviors that are completely developed by humans, that for the most part don't occur in natural dog behavior, but help the dog to live in a human, a captive life with humans. So again, yes, very much potentially life-saving, helps your dog to understand the world that they find themselves in, helps them to understand how to behave in that world, how to navigate that world. But when we are looking at emotional issues, we want to address these from the perspective of what is natural for the dog's own communication, body language, vocalizations, what those mean from the dog. We want to address the trauma or fear or aggression, high arousal, whatever issues your dog, whatever extremes of behavior your dog has. I don't like to use the word issue, but whatever extremes of behavior your dog has, we want to address those from the dog's perspective. We want to we want to listen to what they're saying. We want to communicate on their level. We want to teach them to be more comfortable as being a dog. And I think we need to address and what am I going to say? We want to address and communicate with our dogs as dogs way more than we want to, or earlier, prior to teaching them how to live in our world. At least side by side. But addressing the extremes of behaviors that your dog may be displaying, we need to look at those in terms of natural dog behavior. And on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us. This will be available for, how long did she say?
30 days.
30 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we are going to also post this on our YouTube channel. And we hope to be doing more of these types of talks. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask them on the Facebook page, wherever you, or contact us by email or text or whatever. And we look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Yes, and we do have a Halloween photo contest.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we do. You can post it under the event or send a private message with your dog in a costume. I'm definitely going to have my dog in a costume. And we always do advertise class. So visit positivepet.net for more classes. I'm offering classes, so is Janine. And, any of us are available for private lessons as well. Thank you so much for joining this event. We are so happy with the turnout, and all your questions were wonderful. We are so excited to do this again. If you have any suggestions or any comments or concerns or questions about training, let us know.
Awesome.
All right.
Have a great Sunday evening.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.